Hello everyone and welcome to DC Central, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down and reviewing Supergirl Season 4 Episode 10, otherwise entitled Suspicious Minds. And if you've not seen this episode, make sure you go watch it before you watch this review, as it will be filled with spoilers. We'll be here for you when you finish it. So Supergirl is back after the hiatus, after the Christmas break, after the Elseworlds crossover. We are officially back with Supergirl Season 4 here with Episode 10, and there's been some hype surrounding this back half of the season, given the fact we have the Red Kara coming along at some point. We also have some more storylines that are continuing to develop with the Identity storyline and things like that. So there has been some interest going into this season for me. So going into this premiere, there was some cool things I was interested in. Now, just a quick thing on the side, I was going to do a separate video on this, but I thought I might as well just chuck it in here. There was some news regarding the Wynn returning to the show, of course the character played by Jeremy Jordan. It was said very early on, I think around Comic-Con time, that Jeremy Jordan was in a recurring role this season, but it's now been confirmed that Jeremy Jordan is not returning in Season 4 at all, and he will most likely be returning in Season 5, so yeah, don't expect any Win this season. He's not coming back like they said he was. He's going to be completely gone from this season, but he might show up again next season, which does open more possibilities for other actors, such as potentially Chris Wood could come back as Mon-El, because I feel like if Win shows up and not Mon-El, it would be very weird, so I feel like maybe that's what they're doing as well, timing it so we can get Chris Wood back as well for an episode or two, and more Legion of the Superhero stuff. So yeah, no Win this season, but he will be back next season. So this episode opens up with Red Kara. Like I mentioned earlier, we see her take down a missile silo, and I thought this was kind of interesting, although the CGI was absolutely dreadful in this scene, as are a couple of scenes I'll mention later on. But this particular scene, just the aerial stuff, the entire thing was pretty much CGI, and it was really, really obvious. Like, even the landscape was CGI, and it just looked absolutely horrific. But, you know, this Red Kara thing is definitely something they're slow cooking. It's definitely something that they are building up towards, definitely something they're playing the long game with. You know, we get these little teasers every few episodes of what she's doing, and we do have some Russian soldiers saying, you know, she's not going to be taking on tanks, train her harder because we need to prepare her for what she's actually going to be going up against, which we have to assume is Supergirl. So, you know, I think with these Red Kara things, it's definitely the most interesting thing going into the back half of the season. We just still don't really know who this character is or where she comes from. Now, one of the story threads going on in this episode is that Brainy invites Nia out for dinner, and he basically gets her there to talk to her about her joining Kara's team and basically becoming a superhero. Now, I bring this up because we did also get some news on the weekend that we got the official release image of Nyanal in her superhero costume, which you can see on screen now. And I have to say, I really like this suit. I mean, a lot of people have been saying that it's very spandexy, but I feel like that's just the direction all the costumes on the CW are going at this point. Like, if you look at the new costume for The Flash in Season 5, it's very spandexy, so I feel like that's just what they're going for. They're moving away from the leather, and they're going into the more spandex-style costumes, which I personally don't have a problem with, and I feel like this suit is really strong. It looks great, and I feel like for the overall look of what they're going for, this is the perfect look for Nia, and I think it looks really good. I think, you know, Nicole Maines looks really good in that suit as well. It's just a really good image, and obviously we have to wait until we actually see it in action, but I do really like it. My only issue with all of this is that I don't like how quickly she's becoming a superhero. Like, I feel like they should have definitely slowed down on this. It feels far too quick. I mean, we were only introduced to this character in episode 1 this season, so, you know, suddenly, you know, 11, I believe they said episode 12 is when we're going to see this costume, so 12 episodes later she's instantly a superhero. I don't really like that. I feel like maybe they should have left this till next season, or maybe even the season after that. I compare it to what Arrow did with Roy Harper. Like, Roy took 3 seasons before he actually became Arsenal, so I feel like they should have slowed this down a little bit. But if we are going to be getting it this season, looking at it at face value, I do like this costume, and I am excited to see what Nia can do, and I have really liked her character thus far, so I'm up for this. Now, James and Lena do a bit of damage control in this episode, where they basically just fix each other's relationship. Basically, Lena realizes she's just being a bit of a bitch, really, and she heads over to to Catco to go talk to James, and they just sort things out. There's not really much going on with James and Lena in this episode, other than the fact that they're kind of just doing alright again. So there is that, I suppose. It's not really that worth mentioning, but I thought I'd bring it up at least. Now, interestingly, Jean actually has set up his own private investigator office in this episode, which I found very interesting. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, there was no hints about this. There was no, you know, hints at the end of the mid-season finale, as far as I can remember. It literally just, the camera pins up and we see Jean Jones in his office, and I was like, oh, okay. But I have to say, I think this is a cool character turn for him. I think this is interesting, because I'll be honest, I haven't loved Jean's story this season. I think it's been very weak and very just very derivative of what Jean actually is, and I haven't really enjoyed it. But this seems like a bit of an improvement. It seems like something that he wants to do. It seems like something that David Harewood is happy with, and something that he's willing to go down with. So, you know, if he's down with it, then I'm going to be down with it, and I feel like this character turn, depending on what they do with it, could be very interesting. So he's going to be acting as a kind of private investigator for both aliens and humans. I think that could be something interesting, depending on what they do with it. Now, I mentioned earlier about in the Red Kara scene about the awful CGI. There is another scene in this episode with horrendous CGI, which is there's this scene where Kara, Alex, and Jean go to this older member of the DEO to go and ask him some questions about what they're dealing with in this episode. And there's this car chase scene, and it's just horrific. I was laughing at this episode so badly during this scene when Jean is like on top of the car trying to talk to him, and it's so badly CGI'd on. Like, they've just CGI'd David Harewood onto the car, and he's so small in comparison to the rest of it. It's completely out of proportion, and it looks absolutely hysterical. And then on top of that, there's a scene where the driver of the car gets thrown out, and the car continues to drive around a corner. Like someone is still in there turning the wheel, and it was just completely ridiculous, completely stupid, and completely dumb. And, you know, I think the first half of this episode is incredibly dumb, but the second half does take a bit of a turn. So Colonel Haley in this episode has been trying to interrogate all the members of the DEO to find out Supergirl's identity, which, you know, the Kara identity thing is something I have been quite interested in, because I feel like that's something different for this. You know, similarly to what Arrow's done last season and then continued on with this season, is obviously outing Oliver as the Green Arrow. Something like that for Supergirl could be very, 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 very crucial to keeping it fresh. And, you know, I've been kind of waiting for this to happen. But what I liked about this is that they introduced the idea of, oh, well, Jean can wipe people's memories. So eventually what they come down with is that Jean just wipes everyone at the DEO, including Alex. And I think this is an amazing character turn. I think this is brilliant. I mean, you know, I give all the props in the world to the writers here, because I think this is a brilliant choice to do. Wiping Alex's memory, meaning that she no longer knows that Kara is Supergirl. She just sees her as Kara, her sister. She doesn't actually know that her sister is Supergirl anymore. I think that's incredibly interesting. Now, granted, we didn't actually see her react to this. The episode ends with her getting her memory wiped. So they could do a bait and switch. They could do it last minute and just say, oh no, we found a loophole around it. But as it stands right now, she has no recollection or memory of Kara being Supergirl. And I think that's actually something that could be very, very interesting, because a lot of these superhero shows, especially in the Arrowverse and the CW, have kind of lost the whole, you know, superhero identity thing. Because on The Flash, everyone knows that Barry is the Flash pretty much. Obviously on Arrow, Oliver's been outed. So, and on Supergirl, you know, all the characters that are important know that she's Supergirl. So, you know, the fact that one of the main characters, arguably the second main character of the show, is no longer going to know that she's Supergirl, I think is something that could be played on very well for Season 4, and I'm very, very excited to see where they go with that, and how that develops as the season and the show goes on, and will we get a big reveal for Alex again like we got in Season 1? Who knows? I think that could be something very, very interesting and very exciting, and it's actually going to keep me on the edge of my seat, so props to the writers for that. I feel like I say this in every single Supergirl review, but Alex and Chyla Lee is just absolutely incredible. I mean, I think it's amazing that Alex started out as an incredibly bad character in Season 1, if I'm honest, and then in Season 2 massively stepped up, and she has just continued to get better and better and better with each season. And she was just fantastic in this episode, not only due to the performance she delivers in this scene where she's getting her memory wiped, but also just Alex as a character just does incredibly well. Like, even there's a scene where she's talking about how she wants to strike Colonel Haley, but she can't. And then she just does it. And I thought that was fantastic. Like, normally Supergirl would completely bow out of those sort of things, but Alex just full-on punches her in the face. And I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was so well done, so well timed. I think it worked brilliantly. And just, again, the performances in this scene where she's getting her memory wiped. You know, I think Chyla Lee deserves a lot of attention for that. And also, so does Melissa Benoist. She also did a great job in this as well, in this particular scene. But I just think Alex, you know, she doesn't get enough recognition. I think she's brilliant in this episode, as she always is every single week. And I think this episode proves why she's the best character on this show. Overall, I'm kind of in two minds about this episode of Supergirl, this mid-season premiere. I mean, on the one hand, I think the first half of this episode is incredibly dumb, incredibly weak, and there was some really bad CGI, you know, throughout those couple of scenes I mentioned. But the second half of the episode, pretty much from the DEO assault onwards, is really good. You know, with the actual assault itself, how they deal with Colonel Haley, and then the memory wipe situation. I think there's some really good stuff in the back half, some really well acted emotional beats, and also some really interesting decisions that are made to actually warrant this episode being watched. So I definitely think this was a decent mid-season premiere for Supergirl, definitely a decent start for this back half of the season. Just like I say, you just kind of have to get through that first half in order to get to the good stuff, but once you get past that, I think you will be satisfied with this episode. So thank you for tuning into DC Central. If you want to see more DC videos, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload, and I hope to see you guys again next time.